Movie Ticket Radio.
And welcome to the Movie Ticket Radio podcast. Yes, that's our official name, and thank you for joining. I am your host, J.R. Russ, with
your friendly co-host, John Records Landecker.
Yes, career broadcasters, and he's Mr. Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. And, of course, we have the Movie Ticket radio station that you can go to at movieticket.radio.com and hear the hits you hear in movies. And this here is a podcast where we're talking about the movies. We might play a little snippet. We're not sure if we can get sued yet, so just stand by and see if you hear it. But we're talking about the songs that you hear in movies. And, John, what are we going to talk about today?
I believe we're going to Guardians of the Galaxy, JR, 2014.
Yes, and a very cool movie that had it was such a weird mix of space fantasy and then top 40 music. It was just something you really didn't expect.
Well, not only that, but it's a combination of space fantasy and a cassette player. Yeah. Because they start the thing out and the music's coming off a cassette.
Yeah.
And you're going, what's happening here? But that's just part of its charm, I think.
I think it's very cool.
I believe that cassette was a mix given to him by his ailing mother.
Yeah, it was she had cancer and was dying and wanted him to have her favorite music to remember her.
Right.
And so he took this alien. Well, he was at the hospital. I don't think we're spoiling this anymore from 2014. And the little boy was all upset that mom did pass in the hospital. And he ran outside, and then all of a sudden the light shines on him, and you assume or know that he got picked up by aliens and taken to space.
Yep. Lucky him.
Yes. And I hope he did not meet that aforementioned anal probe that Chef talked about on South Park. It's a big metal hooba joob they stick up your butt.
Now, I think, that's anti-alien discrimination to assume that that's what an alien's going to do to us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably, that's a rumor probably started by some proctologist, science fiction fan.
Probably. Or it's just maybe old aliens that didn't have the technology of Star Trek with the checker that the doctor had.
Yes, the
tricorder. That's it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's something like that.
Please, Star Trek fans, don't hate us, but tell your friends to listen anyway. So tons of movies, and I believe as he is going in the opening scene, after you know that he's in space, he goes in to steal this rock or gold or something at the beginning. Kind of very much like Indiana Jones. Kind of going in to steal this treasure.
Yeah.
And to put his groove on, he hits the cassette player, and you hear that do-do-do-do-do from Come and Get Your Love. The first drums come out.
Yeah, that would be Come Get Your Love by Redbone.
Yeah, and that was a huge song, 1974. Lolly Vegas wrote it.
Yeah, I have Redbone history, Redbone cred.
Do you?
Yes. I was working at WIBG in Philadelphia.
Wibbage.
And Redbone came out with an album called Potlatch. And on this album was a song called Maggie. And I was the music director of this radio station, and so I started to play it. And it became somewhat of a turntable hit in Philadelphia only. So Pat and Lolly Vegas are the brothers in this group who are all Native Americans. 100%. That's Redbone. And Maggie was out, before Come Get Your Love, because Come Get Your Love was a completely different album. And since I had been one of the first to play the original album and that song Maggie, I got hooked up with an actor named Richard Akins, and a company called Rick Traum Productions that did high school assembly programs, multimedia. And they had one called The Marvel of Sound. And they thought, instead of having a school pay for this, why doesn't this radio station pay for it? And then, John, you can come out at the end of the assembly program and sell yourself and talk about the station. And I went a step further, and I got a hold of, I guess they were on Epic or Columbia at the time. Anyway, they sent me a track-by-track breakdown of Maggie.
Really?
Yeah, which started out only as, like the bass, and then it would add and add and add. And I had a graphic poster that had tracks displayed on it. And this was my little demonstration at the end of this assembly program called The Marvel of Sound, was breaking down for the boys and girls Redbone's Maggie.
And how multi-track recording works, yeah.
Yes. And that, well, it's a marvel of sound, you know. So that's my Redbone story right there.
Well, I was in South Haven, Michigan on Big 9, WJOR, the worst junk on radio. And we too played Maggie.
Potlatch is the album.
Yeah.
So
I remember I remember playing that song because we played like whatever we got for free. We didn't care.
Well, then you probably did play it.
In a very small town. And it might have been the end of 71 or something like that. But I remember we played anything we could get because they had no budget to buy music and we were too small. Like we weren't a Kalamazoo or a Grand Rapids, you know, the big time. And so we just got whatever either trade out they could do with the record store in town, or at that time they used to send free records. In fact, we would pack, we called it a Big 9. We changed the name of the station on the weekend. The owner let us change it from
to Good Crap? What was
well, no, it was we put the 2 good records on the outside and 7 stiffs on the inside.
Gotcha.
So that it was a big 9-pack of records. They go, oh, look at this, Paul McCartney and Elton John, and then inside was like people you never heard of. But hey, kids were happy to get records. They were free.
Well, the first radio station I ever worked for, when I got a Saturday morning 3-hour rock and roll show, they didn't have any record service either. And so I would go down. I was born and raised in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So I'd go down to State Street in Ann Arbor to a place called Discount Records. And they'd let me pick out a whole bunch of 45s that I wanted. And I'd go back to the radio station and play them on the air. And of course, give Discount Records a plug. And then bring the 45s back to them after the weekend.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Kind of like a game-worn jersey. They could sell them for more, probably. They're collectible. This one that's all scratched up was on the radio.
In fact, if I had one now, I could sell it as an NFT.
Yes. Very good. Yeah. You could also put it on Vinyl Tap.
Spinal Tap. Oh, you mean Vinyl Tap.
It's a station that... what's the one that just changed its name? Odyssey. And they have the 70s, and they start some of the songs with cue burn, where when you would play a record, if you wanted it to start at the beginning, DJs would put the record, the 45 or sometimes an album, and put it on the tape. Yeah, it would be like scratching, and they would back it up. Well, they add scratch to some of their songs, and it's like, you know how hard we tried as radio people to get away from scratching those records?
Oh, of
and
course.
Now they actually put it on this Vinyl Tap format. So the song starts out with...
I mean, if you didn't do it correctly when you were live and the needle was too close to the beginning, it would wow in.
Yeah. And then there were different brands because of the vinyl that they used that were really cheap. I think it was Capitol was one that one time you back cued it, you ruined it. It was scratched. That was it.
I think that was called Q-Burn.
Yep. So we digress.
It's coming back to me now. Well, it's a podcast.
That's right. So we're just throwing all of this in, and people who are interested to hear all the little wackiness that we have to offer, hey, we got plenty.
Right.
And in fact, we're going to go all the way, which, by the way, was another song heard in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right. Go All the Way by Eric Carmen and the Raspberries from Cleveland, Ohio.
That was a great song. I called that a Big 9 song because when we worked there, it was just, now I've heard it in a grocery store. But at the time, it was like the hardest frickin' rock record you could play.
Just about.
Yeah. So we got another couple of huge hits in this movie.
I'm Not in Love by 10cc, the one that everybody knows because in the middle of it, a female voice says something along the lines of, "Big boys don't cry."
That's right.
Big boys don't cry.
And I don't know who that is because it's written by Eric Stewart and Graham Goldman. I thought maybe one of the writers was a female, and maybe 10cc had a female in the group. I don't know.
Maybe she was the 11th cc.
Could be.
10cc is a reference to a specific thing.
Is it? I did not know that.
Yes. You didn't?
No.
Well, it's a podcast, right?
Yeah. so we can
Well,
talk.
it's the allegedly the average amount of ejaculate,
Oh,
10 cc.
I had no idea.
Oh yeah. What do you think? Those bands were just throwing these names out?
Yeah,
they were trying
yeah,
to.
good point.
They were trying to sneak stuff past everybody all the time.
Well, they snuck it past me because I
mean-
did not know.
Another group that comes to mind is Steely Dan.
Well, I knew that. Yeah, that was
Right. Okay.
a sexual pleasure device.
Yes, it is.
It was a dildo. Yeah, we can say.
Right.
It. Yeah.
Right. And
I'm looking up here group members in 10cc while I'm at it, and I'm not seeing any women. So I don't know who they got to say, "Big boys don't cry."
I'm surprised they didn't. Maybe there's an album credit. Actually, I'd like to know that.
Wait a minute. I found this from songfacts.com. It says the whispered vocals of "Be Quiet, Big Boys Don't Cry" came from the secretary of Strawberry Studios. Her name is Kathy Redfern, and they were looking for a certain sound. And when she entered the studio to quietly tell Eric Stewart he had a phone call, when they heard the voice, they knew it was right for the song.
Okay.
They do have the band members here of Eric Stewart, Graham Gouldman, and then Lal Cream and Kevin Godley.
Oh, Godley and Cream.
They had a song in the 80s that I think I played in Washington, and it was called Cry. And at the end, they went, cry, cry, cry. But I mean, way higher. Like the last cry was like so dogs could hear it.
You know, I think the next time I'm over at Starbucks, I'm going to order a Godley and Cream with no whip, extra foam, and
And no 10cc, please.
yeah, no 10 cc.
No. But how about some Pina Colada?
Is that in the movie too?
Yes. Rupert Holmes wrote and performed it, and that is in there. The Pina Colada song. There's a guy on the radio in Philadelphia that hates the Pina Colada song because he said, first of all, it's because it's my lady. I had my lady. And then he says, and then they're both very pleased with each other that they were planning on cheating on each other. He says it's such a bright, happy. Yeah, it's such a bright, happy song. But he says it's very dark when you really think about it.
Rupert Holmes, is that who does that?
Yes.
Like a pina colada.
Yep.
What?
And then there was the other one I missed here. Oh, another big rocker again, Big Nine song, Uka Chaka Baby.
Well, you know, that's Hooked on a Feeling, which, of course, recently B.J. Thomas passed away.
He did.
Who sang the original version of that song.
Yep.
And then Blue Suede or Swede or whatever the heck they called themselves. And that whole Ooga Chaka came out and probably sold more copies than B.J. Thomas's original, although at the time the Thomas original was a hit.
Yeah, they were a Swedish group, right?
Yes, that's right.
Because Bjorn Skifs performed it. It said as Blue Swede.
Uh-huh. That's right.
Oh, and also Francis Zambone wrote that as Mark James. So I wonder if he's related to the Zamboni family of the
Now, wait a minute.
Ice.
Francis Zambone wrote what?
Hooked on a Feeling.
No kidding.
Yeah. Hey, the big Zambone.
If Francis is part of the Zamboni family?
Nah, that's not. I'm not seriously, no. But one time I was driving through from Canada, from Detroit to Buffalo, and I went past the Zamboni factory.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, hey, that's where they make them, man. It was cool. They had one parked out front.
I didn't. They have a used parking lot. Used
No,
Zamboni
I think it
lots?
was a display. Either that or
Previously driven.
Yeah.
Zamboni.
gently driven at 2 miles an hour.
Yeah. A little old lady only drove it on ice.
Yes. Good traction. Very good traction. There was an ice rink near this Elks Lodge I used to go to. It was like next door to it. And even in the hottest day of July, there'd be a big pile of snow out back.
Wow.
Because they'd scrape the ice and dump it out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of songs that you may not know in that Guardians of the Galaxy their thing. Mounage Daydream, written and performed by David Bowie.
Do not know it.
And I'm gonna try, risking financial doom, I'm gonna try to put a little clip of it in here. So check this out.
I'm an alligator. I'm a mama, papa coming for you. I'm a space invader. I'll be a rock and rollin' bitch for you.
So there you go. That's from Ziggy Stardust. It's weird. I don't know. It's just, but it was in there along with
David Bowie.
It was a mad scene from Lucia di Lammermoor, performed by Bergamo Musica Festival Orchestra. That was, I don't know, it was in there.
In what movie?
In Guardians of the Galaxy. It's just credited in the soundtrack.
Well,
whatever the hell that is.
Yeah. I'll have to go back and give a listen because I don't know.
And then some other big hits in that movie. Fooled Around and Fell in Love.
By the Elvin Bishop Group, and that was Mickey Thomas singing lead on that, who went on to also, for a while, sing lead for the Jefferson Starship.
Really? And see, there's another one I did. You are just full of it today.
Well, you know.
And Ooh Child.
QB and the Five Stair Steps. What a great tune that was.
Stan Vincent wrote it, and also performed by Chris Pratt in the movie. I guess he's singing it along.
Yeah.
And then another great duet, Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
By Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell.
Right. Written by another great duet.
Ashford and Simpson.
Very good. And then there was Cherry Bomb.
Oh, by the Runaways.
Wow. And I would not know that song unless I heard it.
One of the original all-girl rock bands.
Oh.
The Runaways.
I would have thought of the John Mellencamp song. Not this one. So I'll have to listen to that.
Hello, Daddy. Hello, Mom. Jerry Bob.
I don't think so.
Co-written by Kim Fowley and
Joan Jett.
Yep.
Who was part of the Runaways.
She and her Black Heart.
This is her band before all of that, though.
Yeah. And a final one that I've got credit here for was I Want You Back by that group from Gary, Indiana.
Jackson 5.
That's right. Written by Freddie Perrin, Fonz Mazzelli, and Barry Gordy.
Barry Gordy, man.
And Deke Richards. Hey, Deke. That's a good name. Hey, Deke.
I like that. Deke. What's happening to Deke?
So that is, I guess, all we've got time for, and probably all you have time for, too, as we play the Movie Ticket Radio podcast, looking at the songs you hear in Guardians of the Galaxy. And if you want to hear the hits you hear in movies, go to movieticket.radio.com. And if you got a struggling radio station in your town, tell them about us and say, hey, why don't you put this thing on?
Thank you and good night.
Goodbye. Oh, and if you'd like to write us, don't forget to use the simple email address of movieticketradio@gmail.com.
Movie Ticket Radio.